Welcome back to the broadcast. We're honored to have Congressman Jonathan L. Jackson from the 1st District of Illinois. Congressman Jackson, thank you so much for joining us.
Honored to be here. Great to see you, Brother Armstrong. Thank you for having me on.
It is my pleasure. You know, so many Americans ask, why do we keep going to that cliff where it is always this possibility of a government shutdown, and yet it doesn't happen. And the current Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, always find a way to get the support of the Democrats to make sure that the government continues without any interruption. Your thoughts?
Well, there's a huge fracture within the Republican Party. And I take my hats off to Leader Hakeem Jeffrey. The Democrats at this point, and it's an anomaly in history, are leading from behind. We're the minority party that's having to show the leadership to keep the government open and funded. Mr. Johnson cannot get or corral his 219 party members to pass a budget. So these budgets that have kept the government open, that have averted the government cliff, as in the United States not being able to pay its soldiers, its military, its budget, is being kept open by the Democrats. And that's to the outstanding leadership of Leader Hakeem Jeffries. And so on any given day, the Republicans are fighting in-house. Think about it. In Ohio, the Republican governor and the Republican mayor is saying there's nothing disparaging and nothing wrong with what's happening with the Haitians, and what Donald Trump and J.D. Vance are doing with the Haitian population in Springfield are lies. There's nobody eating cats and dogs, and these people are good Americans and exemplary people that are trying to make life better for themselves and be contributing to society. And so why would the president and the vice president say that against the governor and the mayor, both Republicans in the same state? Same thing's happening in Washington, D.C. What
do you say to Speaker Mike Johnson and others, and obviously this has already passed, who says that they're concerned that migrants are who are illegal and not U.S. citizens are on the voting rolls to vote in this presidential election, and that should not be the case, that only U.S. citizens should be allowed to vote. What do you say to that?
Well, it's beneath the dignity of the institution. There's no truth to it. There's no verification to it. This is rehashing 2020. It went through all the courts. There's no proof. Show the proof. And it's just not there. There were 537 elections in 2020. There were 435 people in Congress. There was roughly 470 elections. There were 33 Senate races up, 435 congressional, and the president and vice president. And he says only his numbers were off. No senator, no congressman, nobody else is complaining about anything, just his. Come on, that's like so ridiculous. It's been tested, vetted through the courts. It's not true.
So do you think?
So he's not proving anything. Okay. Show me where there's proof. But there is proof that he's not telling the truth.
All I do, Congressman, is just ask the questions. So you're saying the reason why America faces these cliffs and the reason why we have these issues in the country is because of a divided Republican Party. It is the Republicans alone who are responsible for the chaos that we see ourselves facing today?
Yes, sir. Because if you look at what is the role of the Congress to deal with the appropriations, to deal with the spending of the money, the leadership right now is in the hands of Speaker Mike Johnson. He's not able to pass a budget with the majority of the Republican Party.
Well, let me raise this with you. Obviously, you feel very strong about your Democratic Party and your minority leader, Hakeem Jeffries. If the Democrats are doing such a terrific job of holding the country together, why do you think that your nominee, Ms. Harris, is not just run away with this election by 25 percentage points? Or is it that the American people just don't understand the issue? Is it that the American people see flaws in both parties and they want both parties and the legislation to eventually work for them? If the Republicans are so bad, why is there such not only a close contested election, but it seems as though Republicans could possibly retain control of the Senate and the House is still up in the air? Why such close elections?
Well, let me tell you, I really don't try to hit the line on like super partisanship. I've got a lot of great Republican friends. I don't want to demonize them or disparage anyone just because they're Republican and the like. I want to be very narrow in my conversation, if you will, Armstrong, on that. I got great respect for you and for quite a few Republicans. I'm talking about the leadership that's in place. And Mr. Donald J. Trump is an aberration. And so some people are just voting for him because they thought they were right the first time. Other people are blindly just voting with the mass of the party. But if you look at the character of the man, what's at the top of the ticket, that's a problem. And so there's a long, and it's going to be a deep fracture at the end of this election. And when you've got someone that's denying what's happened, 81 million people told the man they did not want him in the last election. That's verifiable. That's why he's not the president today. I can't explain the reason why the race is close, but if the press would do a better job of reporting the fact, he is a former ex and now a convicted person that's seeking a nomination. Even to call him president and call her vice president, he's a former president. But if anyone else had been convicted of the crimes that he has committed, they'd be known by the crime they committed. It'd be called felon. But that handle is not attributed to him or applied.
How does the Vice President Harris earn the trust of the voters, not only on the economic woes that they face, but also one of the areas where she's vulnerable is the issue of our open borders, which is why she recently paid a visit to the southern border in Arizona. How does she earn the trust of the voters on that issue and the economy?
Well, let's take the first part on the border issue. There was a border deal in place that the Republicans and the Democrats had agreed to. And the nominee, Mr. Donald Trump, started calling around and telling people, do not sign it. He wanted to make this an issue. So both sides, there's a lot of bipartisanship agreement on what we have to do with the border. Why would Donald Trump scuttle the deal and politicize it and say, let's keep this a hot button issue and so that we can campaign against it? You know what he did. Everyone knows what he did, and that's not fair. The other part on what can we do about the economy, the tax cuts that Mr. Trump had put in place. 20 years ago, there was one person in America worth $100 billion. Now it's over 100 people worth $100 billion. Don't we believe that people that have made this enormous amount of wealth off the American people ought to pay something, pay their fair share? We have 42 million people, 21.6 million households that are food insecure, that need supplemental nutritional assistance program, the SNAP program. Why are we not fully funding SNAP? Right now, it's caught up, and I'm in the Ag Committee, with $30 billion more of cuts that people are seeking on the Republican side. The Democrats are very much in unison on saying, let us feed. This goes to $2 per meal per person. We cannot have rising malnutrition. That is what we currently have. So there are sensible programs that many people want to get and move forward with. I want to see the Farm Bill passed. The farmers need it, the markets need it, our economy needs it. So some of this has just simply been a matter of politics that Mr. Trump has not been really held to task on what his economic achievements are. Many people in the press aren't holding him to task.
What do you say?
I just saw an ad this morning. He's trying to sell a gold watch.
What do you say?
Gold watch.
What do you say about the rise in juvenile crime, particularly where you are in Chicago? What do we do to curtail this crime, the petty theft, people living in fear, particularly in neighborhoods in your own backyard of Chicago? What recommendations do you have?
Yeah, Armstrong. So let's think about it. We have seen this before. This has played out where children have been at risk, where families have been fractured, and some of the social fabric is fraying. We have to bring children together and help them. You know the book, and we've all read it. This is Oliver Twist. You're talking about the children that did this in Europe before. These are some of the same children now that are coming from at-risk communities, be they black, white, or any other color. And when we look at Dylan Ruth, how did he get a gun? When we look at Mother Emanuel's church, why are we weaponizing children? We've seen the young man that went into Emmanuel Church. We've seen the child that went into the grocery store in Buffalo. We've seen Kyle Rittenhouse to go into the store and to walk the streets in Wisconsin. We've seen Aurora, Colorado. We've seen Sandy Hook. America's youth are being weaponized. And these school shootings, there have been over 50 to date, I believe, in America. It's an increasing trend. We have to turn our children away from a culture of violence. There are more mass shootings. Think about it. 70 years ago, people had to go to school, Armstrong, and to do a nuclear drill, go underneath the desk. I don't know what that was going to solve, but they had to go underneath the desk. When I was in school 40 years ago, we had to have fire drills, and that was very important. Now, today, one of my colleagues at the Congress, he got an urgent call, and his child was upset, and they said he wasn't cooperating, and he calls in and finds out they were having a gun drill, and they were telling his child that he would have to jump off of a second-story floor in the event of a gun drill. We're having gun drills in school. How much things have changed, and it's increasing. So we have to get violence out of the culture, out of the schools, out of the society. What's making our children more violent? And young white men have an extremely difficult time that I know they've been very generous in looking at young black children, but we have to talk about young white children of the Kyle Rittenhouses and the Sandy Hooks and the Zimmerman that killed Trayvon Martin. Let's help all these young children like we've seen in Oliver Twist and the children of Europe before.
How do we make sure, when you look at the dismal results, particularly with these urban kids and the writing, the reading, and arithmetic, what they're doing on these standardized tests, how do we make sure that education works for our kids? Because it's one of the most important passports to the future.
I agree, Armstrong. And I would say the school is not defined simply as the building. The school is the neighborhood. If we're going to talk about enhancing the reading scores, we have to look at the fabric of the society. What do the children need? There's one school of thought that says we have to prepare our children for school. There's another school of thought that says we have to prepare the school for the children. So I am all for a flexible model so we can meet children where they are. Some children are showing up to school with dirty clothes. Some schools will have to have a washer and dryer in there. Some children aren't coming from a functional home. Some children are living in the margins, sleeping on the aunts, nieces, nephews. I had one child, I asked him when I was a professor, and asked him for a phone number and how could I reach him. He gave me 5 different numbers, and I was like, well, how do I reach you? Well, this is my aunts, this is my cousins, this is my grandmothers. I mean, the child, what they've now is they've used a sanitized term as opposed to saying child homelessness. They're saying these children are highly mobile, meaning that they're coming and moving fluidly. We have to stabilize the neighborhoods. Housing has to be a priority. Food has to be a priority. And then to give them all the care and wrap the services around them, making sure they've had their dental exam, their vision exam. I believe government should step in and help children when they can't help themselves. And when families can help themselves, the government ought to step back. Right now, we're in a period where children and families need the government's assistance. Let's get the family strong so the government can get out of the family structure.
You know, finally, we have about 30 seconds left. How do we remind people that no matter what happens after November 5th, the winter, no matter, we're still Americans at the end of the day, and we face some of the greatest crises in our history, and we've been able to survive. How do we send that message, Congressman?
Well, it starts at the top. I'm very much concerned about the children in Springfield, Ohio. There have been bomb threats on these Haitian students and other students. It's a safe place. It's a model community. There are 32 states that have a Springfield, and Mr. Trump and Vance are racializing this, and they're now making Springfield a dangerous place. So we have to stop having physical violence, have to stop having political violence, talking it. These words matter. Words matter. It ended up getting our officers
Congressman
killed
Jackson, I can tell you and I must get together for a longer conversation and invite you to our studio house. There's so much for us to talk about, so much to cover. It was always a pleasure having you on, and thank you so much for joining us, as well as our other guests. Thank you. Good day from the Armstrong Williams Show.
Thank you.